So like a lot of readers, I recently was downloading stuff during one of those stuff your e-reader type events, specifically for a fantasy romance. And while I was scrolling through all of the books available, I couldn't help but notice how everything is just kind of looking the same. And that made me start thinking about cover trends, and in particular today I want to talk a little bit about discrete covers. So hi, if you're new here, my name is Beth Alvarez. I am an award-winning author of fantasy, and I also write romantic fantasy, so this is relevant to me, and it's something that I'm kind of trying to make a decision about, so I thought I would talk a little bit about how discrete covers in romance genres have heavily affected cover design in so many other genres. So if you've never heard anything about discrete covers before, it comes from that in romance, the spicier a book is, the more likely it was to have a naked man on the front, or at least his chest. It's always been something that readers have kind of laughed at, that we moved from, like the bodice rippers to the man chest covers. But as romance books started getting more and more spicy, and the spice factor started being more of a selling point in all of these books, we started seeing a rise of discrete covers. The discrete covers are typically just like text or object based. It might have something vague on it like flowers. And the idea is that if you are out in public, like maybe you take public transportation to get to and from school or work, if you're reading a book with a discrete cover, nobody's going to know what it actually is. When discrete covers first started popping up, they were treated as just an alternate cover. It was an alternate edition that you could get so that you weren't carrying around the book with the man chest all day and you could comfortably read in public, because we don't like to talk about it very much, but reading something that indicates on the cover that it may be more explicit can draw some very unpleasant and unwanted attention, which is definitely something nobody wants to have to deal with. So now seeing shirtless dudes on the covers is kind of uncommon. And as we started seeing this more in romance, it also kind of bled into all the romance subgenres like Romantasy, which is something that I write. Now when you look at Romantasy, practically all of them are what I would consider discrete covers, where it's primarily focused on like a text or symbol-based design. Doesn't really give you any idea of what you're getting into. And for a while, one thing that I found really interesting was that if you went into Amazon's clean romance categories, you were less likely to see those discrete covers, and you were more likely to see characters on the covers still. And when I use that terminology, I always feel like I have to mention that when I say a clean romance, I am not trying to put down authors of spicy fiction. I have written fiction with spice myself, but that's what the category on Amazon is called. It's called clean and wholesome romance. So if it's not the spicy romance, then it's probably going to be in the clean romance category. That's where the readers are going to find it. When you get into Amazon's clean fantasy romance category, which is where my books in the Artisan Magic series fit in, you still see a lot of covers like mine that have characters on them. So like this one is still very much at home in that category shelf. But if you happen to find it on the main fantasy romance section, then it looks a little bit out of place. And I'm starting to wonder if maybe I should consider making newer covers for these, because this book, it's hard to believe it, but it's already been out for, gosh, like 2 years, almost 3 years. And cover trends move really fast. I will say I still find a lot of fantasy romances do the thing where they have the alternate cover. They'll use the discrete cover as the main cover, but still have one with character art available. So even though I'm wondering if I should try to update these to match what is currently hot and trendy, even for not so hot and spicy books, I always wonder if it's worth devoting a lot of time to rebranding to try to keep up with trends, because they change so fast, especially in indie spaces. because I could pretty easily recover my books to match the discrete cover trend and then have things shift back toward character-based within just a few months. I recently did something similar with my books, The Snake's Blood Saga. I did not change the paperbacks, which all have the original illustrations that I did for the series, but I did update all of the ebook covers into a text-oriented design. And even though I'm kind of salty about it because I really love the original covers and I vastly prefer fantasy books with painted covers rather than just text or object-based designs, my sales on that series have increased pretty substantially since the update. So I do have evidence that it makes a difference. It works even for books that are not the hot and spicy variety, needing to make themselves a little bit more subdued for public consumption. And since I do basically all of my own cover design, I have a lot of flexibility and leeway in that I can change my covers as often as I want, and generally for a low cost. It's just a big time investment, and it's always hard to decide if it's worth taking that time away from writing to focus on something like a cover redesign. But I will say I'm kind of kicking myself because I saw this trend beginning to emerge several years ago when I started releasing the Artisan Magic Romantasy series. And my very first cover concept was actually one of the more discreet designs that was text-oriented. The main reason I didn't go with that was because when I went and looked at what other no-spice fantasy romances were doing, there were so many more character-oriented covers that I felt it was better to fit in with my subgenre niche. And there's no way for me to ever know if that stunted my success with the series. It's actually consistently my best-selling series, even with the character-oriented covers, but there's just no way to know if a different approach would have been better. Like I did with the Snake's Blood Saga, I may end up making alt covers for Artisan Magic just to see what happens. I can try them out on the ebooks, I don't have to put them on the paperbacks, and we'll kind of see how things go. But that does step into the very dangerous territory of chasing trends. That's never something I want to get caught up in doing. But yeah, I'm curious to know your thoughts on the matter. If you have seen this trend or have seen other trends starting to emerge, what would you do? Let me know in the comments, and I'll see you next time. Bye.